It's Marcus again. Welcome to assignment 7. We have a top module that includes a clock divider, 3 muxes that just basically select which clock we're going to use, some switches that will select which counter we're going to use. There are 4 counters included, and then there's an LED mux out. This test bench for the top design will have a clock that is 125 megahertz, which is an 8 nanosecond period. And it will be driven to the top module at all times. The clock divider will divide that clock into 16, 8, and 1 kilohertz speeds. And this test bench will start with a reset and then check each counter, the binary counter, the Johnson counter, the shift left ring counter, and the shift right ring counter will all be checked with all 3 speeds and all their values with all 3 speeds. So I'm checking every single combination of all 3 speeds and all values on all counters. The first one will be the binary counter. It'll be checked at 62.5 microsecond intervals for the 16 kilohertz clock. It'll be checked at 125 millisecond intervals for the 8 kilohertz clock, and it'll be checked at 1 millisecond, or did I say microsecond? 125 microsecond. I don't know. I can't remember what I said. 1 millisecond intervals for the 1 kilohertz clock. For the binary, since it counts in binary, so it counts in order from 0 to 15. I did these as a loop because these other ones do not. The Johnson and the shift left ring and the shift right ring, I listed each one. A little more inelegant, but it works. So I did put a reset in between each counter, not each clock speed, but each counter. So there's 3 extra resets. And the reason I did that was to have control over what the first value would be for each counter, because there's no mechanism in place in this design that would control whether those counters stop counting, hold their count, or reset their count other than the reset. So the reset is the only way to have that control over each counter and where they begin and when you want them to begin at 0 or whatever the first count is. I did put a note here that I felt like the design would benefit from having like some kind of a hold mechanism. So maybe like a branch off from each bit of the SW switch could go to each counter, and if that's at 0, meaning that counter is not selected, it would basically just hold the value and not count, not continue to count, just hold it where it was, maybe even at 0. So, all right, it's going to go through all these values and all these speeds. And each time it's going to check a value and it's going to say either the values do not match and it's going to finish there if it messes up, or it's going to pass all the way through, get to the end, and provide the finish line and victory report test pass. So let's go ahead and run it. I haven't run it since earlier today, so hopefully there's no gremlins in this thing and it works because it's pretty long. All right, well, shows here got there. Can move this up a little bit. And yep, there we go. There's our note. Test passed. So it passed, made it all the way. And even though it shows that right there, that's just because we haven't zoomed in. So the waveform shows that we're hitting everything. All this stuff right here is the faster clocks. And yeah, it works. Thank you very much.